Do you always buy your way out of trouble like this? He asked. Do you always exploit desperate women? She snapped back. For a moment, silence. Then his low chuckle filled the room, dangerous, amused. You have fire, Miss Monroe. I like that. But let's be clear, this isn't exploitation. It's business. You get your freedom. I get. He stepped closer until she could feel his breath on her cheek. One night, Acacia froze. The world seemed to shrink until it was just him, his scent, his voice, his heat. She hated that her heart was betraying her, pounding for the very man who represented everything she despised. Why me? She whispered. Because I wanted to see what desperation looks like when it's this beautiful. The rain was endless that night, the kind that soaked through skin and pride. London's skyline glittered like 1,000 diamonds mocking the poor. And beneath it all, Acacia Monroe stood outside Le Mirage, shivering in a crimson dress that belonged to another woman. She had been beautiful once, carefree, full of dreams. Now her beauty looked like a weapon she didn't want to use. Her heart raced as she looked up at the building's mirrored doors. Inside waited the man everyone whispered about, Hajun, the youngest and most ruthless mafia boss in London. Korean-born, London-made, and utterly untouchable. Acacia's voice trembled as she spoke to the guard at the door. Tell him, Acacia Monroe is here. The guard scanned her from head to toe, the trembling hands, the fragile defiance in her eyes, then nodded. He's expecting you. Her stomach dropped. She had spent the past week convincing herself she could do this. One night, that was the deal. One night in his bed to erase £3 million of inherited debt from her late father's bad choices. She had told herself it was survival. But now that she stood at the edge of the abyss, her body shook with fear. The elevator opened into a dimly lit penthouse high above the Thames. Everything about the space screamed power. Glass walls, marble floors, and silence that felt alive. And then he appeared. Hajun stood by the window, his reflection merging with the London skyline. His suit was black, perfectly tailored. His expression, unreadable. When he turned, his gaze locked on her like a weapon. You came. His voice was deep, smooth, yet dangerous. She swallowed. You gave me no choice. Everyone has a choice, he said quietly, stepping closer. Even when they think they don't. He studied her like a puzzle, not the kind you solve, but the kind you keep for the thrill of mystery. You're even more beautiful than the file said. Acacia's throat tightened. Is that what I am? A file? His lips curved slightly. No. You're a debt that needs clearing. He poured her wine. Her hands shook when she took the glass. The air between them was electric, heavy with something she couldn't name. Do you always buy your way out of trouble like this? He asked. Do you always exploit desperate women? She snapped back. For a moment, silence. Then his low chuckle filled the room, dangerous, amused. You have fire, Miss Monroe. I like that. But let's be clear, this isn't exploitation. It's business. You get your freedom. I get. He stepped closer until she could feel his breath on her cheek. One night, Acacia froze. The world seemed to shrink until it was just him, his scent, his voice, his heat. She hated that her heart was betraying her, pounding for the very man who represented everything she despised. Why me? She whispered. Because I wanted to see what desperation looks like when it's this beautiful. That night, the lines between fear and desire blurred. He didn't rush her. He studied her, unwrapped her slowly, like a secret he wanted to understand before owning it. She told herself it was just one night, a transaction, a means to survive. But when his lips touched hers, she felt something ignite, something that had nothing to do with debt and everything to do with danger. And as the storm raged outside, Acacia realized that she had just sold her freedom, not to escape debt, but to a man who could destroy her heart. The morning sunlight crept through the tall glass windows, brushing over silk sheets and the lingering scent of last night's sin. Acacia's eyes fluttered open, her head spinning with fragments of memory. The touch of his lips, his voice whispering against her skin, the storm outside echoing the one within her. For a moment, she thought it had all been a dream, until she turned and saw him. Hajun sat by the window, shirtless, a black tattoo curling over his shoulder, a dragon winding around a sword. The light caught his skin like a secret made flesh. He was reading something utterly calm, as if nothing had happened. Acacia's heart stuttered. She quickly pulled the sheet to her chest. "You're awake," he said without looking at her, his tone cool, detached. I should go," she murmured, her throat dry. "You can't," he said simply, flipping a page in the newspaper. Her eyes narrowed. "Why not? The deal was one night." He finally looked at her then, and it felt like being seen and stripped bare at the same time. "It was. But now my world knows your name. That makes you a liability." Her blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "You walked into my penthouse, Acacia Monroe. Cameras, people, whispers. It's only a matter of time before someone uses you to get to me." He stood and walked toward her, each step deliberate, silent, until he stopped beside the bed. His gaze lowered, voice a dangerous whisper. "And I don't like anyone touching what's mine." "I'm not yours," she shot back, even as her voice trembled. A ghost of a smirk touched his lips. "You are until I say otherwise." Acacia's heart thudded. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, but her body betrayed her. She could still feel his touch on her skin, still hear the way he had said her name like a promise and a curse. "You think you can control everything," she said bitterly. "Even people." "Control keeps me alive," he replied. "Emotion gets people killed." Something flickered in his eyes, something almost human, but it vanished before she could grasp it. She finally dressed, her hands shaking as she slipped into her red dress. Her purse lay on the marble table, and beside it, a folded envelope. Her name written in precise handwriting. Acacia Monroe. She opened it, expecting money. Instead, there was a bank statement, her debt cleared, every pound accounted for. And below, a short note in his hand. "Debt settled. Stay out of trouble." She felt her chest tighten. This was supposed to feel like freedom, so why did it feel like loss? As she left the building, she told herself it was over. She'd done what she had to do. She was free. But that night, when she lay awake in her small London flat, she couldn't stop seeing his eyes, cold, calculating, yet haunted, like a man who'd lost something long before he found her. And in the shadows of Greenwich, Hajun stood by his window overlooking the river, a glass of whiskey in hand. One of his men entered quietly. "Boss, she's gone." Hajun nodded, eyes never leaving the water. "Good. Keep a watch on her anyway." "You think she'll talk?" A faint smile curved his lips. "No, but I think I'll want to see her again." The city of London glittered as usual, taxis rushing past, neon lights washing the wet streets in color. But Acacia Monroe felt the chill of eyes she couldn't see. It had been 3 days since she left Hajun's penthouse, 3 days since she told herself she was free. And yet, freedom had never felt so dangerous. At first, she thought she was imagining it. The same black car parked across her building 2 nights in a row, the soft echo of footsteps behind her when she took the shortcut home. But when she returned from her cafe job that evening and found her front door slightly open, her stomach dropped. The air inside was wrong. Thick, quiet, tense. Her heart pounded. "Hello?" she whispered. No answer. Her painting tools were scattered across the floor. The drawer where she kept her father's old watch empty. And then she saw it. A white card on the table, with nothing but an embossed logo. A serpent coiled around a crown. She didn't know what it meant, but instinct screamed run. Before she could, a shadow moved behind her. A gloved hand clamped over her mouth. "Did you think you could touch him and just walk away?" A voice hissed in her ear. "Hajun doesn't get to keep secrets or women." Her muffled scream barely escaped before. Crack. The man was on the floor. A gun lay beside him. Acacia turned, shaking, and froze. Hajun stood in the doorway, eyes burning like thunder under control. His men flanked him, swift and silent, clearing the apartment. "You're late," he said coldly to his bodyguard. She could have been dead. Then his gaze fell on her. Terrified, trembling, barefoot, and something shifted in his eyes. "You're safe now," he murmured, stepping closer. She backed away. "No, I'm not. You brought this to me. You." Her voice broke. He reached for her wrist gently, not as a command but as an anchor. "If they knew where you lived, it means they've been watching you since that night. You were never just a debt, Acacia. You were bait." Her breath caught. Bait? For what? For me. Minutes later, she found herself in the back of his car, wrapped in his coat. Outside, the rain returned, heavy and cold, the same as the night they met. "Who were they?" she asked softly. "Men who want what I have," he said. "Territory, power, leverage. You were their message." She turned to him, her fear giving way to anger. "I didn't ask for your protection. You didn't have to," he said without looking at her. "You're under it whether you want it or not. You can't just decide that." He finally turned, and his voice dropped. "I can. And I did." Their eyes locked, defiance and danger colliding. When they arrived at his mansion in Greenwich, she stepped out hesitantly. It was a world of silence and shadow. Steel gates, marble floors, a river view that shimmered like temptation. Hajun led her inside. "You'll stay here until I find who's behind this. You're locking me up. I'm keeping you alive." His tone left no room for argument. But when she followed him down the hall, something softened. He paused at a grand piano, fingers brushing the keys lightly. The melody that escaped was low, haunting, a glimpse of the man behind the myth. "You play?" she asked, surprised. "Only when I remember I'm still human," he replied quietly. Something in her chest twisted. For the first time, she saw more than power and danger. She saw loneliness. That night, in the guest room overlooking the Thames, Acacia couldn't sleep. She replayed everything. The attack, his rescue, that look in his eyes when he found her. And somewhere deep down, beneath the fear and chaos, a truth she didn't want to name began to bloom. She wasn't just afraid of Hajun anymore. She was afraid for him. Because a man like that didn't just protect. He destroyed anyone who tried to take what he cared about. And now, whether she liked it or not, that included her. The following morning, the mansion felt like a world apart. Silent hallways, marble floors, and glass walls that framed the Thames like a painting. Yet beneath the elegance, there was something watchful. Every camera, every guard, every locked door whispered control. Acacia woke to the sound of footsteps outside her door. When she opened it, a woman in a black suit bowed slightly. "Miss Monroe, Mr. Hajun requests your presence for breakfast." She blinked, still disoriented. "Breakfast? With him? He doesn't repeat himself?" the woman said with a faint smile before turning away. Downstairs, the dining room was vast, almost intimidating. The long mahogany table stretched between them like a border neither dared cross. Hajun sat at the head, reading his phone. His suit was immaculate, his expression carved in stone. He didn't look up as she approached. "Sit." She hesitated but obeyed. Silver trays of food lay untouched between them. "You didn't have to bring me here," she began carefully. "I could have stayed with a friend or—" "Your friends' phones were already traced," he interrupted, still not looking up. "Whoever came for you knows more than I thought." She frowned. "Then why me? Why are they after someone like me?" Finally, he set his phone aside and looked at her. His gaze was steady, sharp, and unreadable. "Because you were seen leaving my penthouse. That alone makes you a target. And I don't lose what's connected to me." She bristled. "You make it sound like I'm property." "No," he said softly. "Your collateral damage I intend to prevent." There was no arrogance in his tone, only quiet certainty. That somehow made it worse. After breakfast, Hajun disappeared into his office with his men. Acacia wandered the mansion, trying to ignore the cameras that followed her every move. She found herself in a long hallway lined with old photographs. Black and white portraits of men in suits, some Korean, others British. Power and danger stared from every frame. At the end of the hall, one picture caught her eye. A much younger Hajun stood beside an older man, sharp-featured, proud, and cold. The resemblance was undeniable. "That's his father," a voice said behind her. Acacia turned to see the woman from earlier, the one in black. "Mr. Hajun doesn't talk about him," the woman added quietly. "Not since the night he died." Acacia's chest tightened. "What happened?" The woman hesitated. "All I know is that his father trusted the wrong man, someone he considered family. He was betrayed, and the boy who saw it swore never to love anyone again." She turned to leave, but not before adding, "Be careful, Miss Monroe. In this house, love isn't protection. It's weakness." That evening, Acacia found Hajun in the music room again, sitting at the grand piano, playing the same haunting melody she'd heard before. For a while, she watched in silence. The man who ruled London's underworld with blood and fear, now lost in music that sounded like regret. "You shouldn't be here," he said without turning. "You keep saying that," she replied softly. "But I'm starting to think you don't mean it." His hands stilled on the keys. The silence between them thickened. "Why did you save me, Hajun?" He looked up, his gaze shadowed. "Because I couldn't let them touch you." "Why?" "I was just a deal. A night you bought." Something flickered in his eyes. Something raw, almost vulnerable. "That night wasn't business," he said quietly. "It was the first time in years I felt anything real." Acacia's breath caught. The walls she'd built around her heart wavered. "You don't even know me," she whispered. He rose slowly, closing the distance between them. "Then let me learn." His hand brushed her cheek, gentle, searching, before he turned and walked away, leaving her heart racing and her soul trembling. That night she couldn't sleep. The mansion felt both safe and suffocating. She opened her window, staring out at the river's dark shimmer. Somewhere out there, enemies were watching, waiting. And inside, a man who claimed not to believe in love was starting to break his own rule for her. But neither of them knew. The same men who broke into her apartment were already planning their next move. And this time, they wouldn't miss. London's nights were never truly quiet. The Thames whispered, the streets hummed, and beneath the city's glitter, danger prowled unseen. Inside Hajun's mansion, that danger was drawing closer. For days, Acacia had lived in a strange rhythm of guarded peace. She woke to find security men patrolling the estate, cameras humming faintly in every corner, and Hajun's presence, distant yet constant. He had become a mystery she couldn't stop wanting to solve. Sometimes she'd catch him watching her, not with the cold, ruthless gaze of a boss, but with something deeper, more human. But just when she thought she was getting closer, he'd shut down again, retreating behind the walls that built his empire. That night, the sky was heavy with fog. Acacia stood by her window, staring at the river that glowed faintly under the city lights. Something about the silence felt wrong. Too thick, too still. Then she saw it, a flicker of movement beyond the gate, a figure. Then two. Then more. Her heartbeat quickened. Before she could react, the lights flickered, once, twice, and went out. Darkness swallowed the mansion. Downstairs, Hajun was in his office when the alarms went off. "Sir, perimeter breach!" one of his men shouted through the radio. Hajun's eyes snapped up. "Lock it down. Get her to safety." He was already moving before the guard could respond. Acacia stepped into the hallway, her breath sharp and fast. She could hear shouting outside, the thud of footsteps, the metallic click of guns being cocked. A hand grabbed her from behind. She screamed, but before the sound left her lips, Hajun spun her around, his arm wrapping protectively around her. "Don't make a sound," he hissed. He led her through a hidden passage behind one of the library's shelves. The narrow corridor was cold and dark, the walls lined with old stone. "What's happening?" she whispered. "They found us." "Who?" "The Varela Syndicate," he said, voice low. "They've wanted me dead since I took their territory. I didn't think they'd use you to send a message again." Her heart twisted. "You're saying this is because of me?" "No," he turned, gripping her shoulders. His jaw was tight, his eyes fierce. They want me, but they'll destroy anyone close to me to make it hurt. For the first time, Acacia saw something raw in him. Fear, not for himself, but for her. Gunfire shattered the silence above. The mansion trembled. Hajun pushed open a steel door leading to a garage beneath the estate. "Get in the car," he ordered. "I'm not leaving without you." He turned sharply, his patience fraying. "Acacia, I don't have time to argue." "Then stop trying to protect me like I'm a child," she snapped, tears burning her eyes. "You said everyone around you dies. Then let me fight to stay alive too." He stared at her, stunned by the fire in her voice. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. "You're insane." "So are you," she shot back. "Perfect match," he murmured, then grabbed her hand. They ran together into the night. The black car sped through Greenwich's fog-drenched streets, engines roaring behind them. Hajun's driver swerved hard as bullets shattered the rear window. "Hold on." Acacia ducked, gripping Hajun's arm. He returned fire through the cracked window, eyes sharp, movements precise. Every inch the man who'd survived a world built on violence. Finally, the pursuing car crashed against a railing, flames lighting up the night. The engine's growl faded into silence. Acacia sat frozen, chest heaving. Hajun turned to her, scanning for wounds. "Are you hurt?" "No, just terrified." He reached up and brushed her cheek gently. His fingers were warm against her cold skin. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have known they wouldn't stop." "Then stop pushing me away," she whispered. "If you want to protect me, let me know what I'm protecting myself from." Hajun looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who had stepped into his darkness and hadn't run. "Fine," he said at last. "You want the truth? The man behind this, the Varela boss, he's the same one who killed my father." Her heart sank. "Then this isn't about business, is it?" "No," he said softly. "It's personal." As dawn crept over the horizon, they arrived at a safe house on the outskirts of London. A smaller place, hidden by trees and silence. Inside, the tension between them shifted, fear giving way to something deeper. Acacia sat on the couch, still trembling. Hajun knelt in front of her, hands on her knees, voice low and steady. "I can't promise you safety. My world doesn't work like that." "I don't want promises," she said, her eyes glistening. "I just want the truth." He held her gaze, the wall around his heart cracking with every second. "Then here it is," he whispered. "You were supposed to be a debt I could forget, but I can't." And before she could reply, his lips met hers. Fierce, desperate, and real. It wasn't a deal anymore. It was a declaration. The safe house sat on the edge of a quiet woodland outside London, far from the polished streets of Greenwich. It was small, almost ordinary, but for Hajun it was the only place where the noise of the city and the men who hunted him could not reach. For the first time in days, Acacia could breathe without the echo of gunfire in her ears. Still, her body wouldn't let go of the tension. She kept replaying the chase, the crash, the look in his eyes when he said the man after him had killed his father. Hajun had barely spoken since they arrived. He moved through the cottage like a shadow, checking windows, testing locks, giving quiet orders over a secure phone line. When he finally stopped, exhaustion showed in the set of his shoulders. Acacia watched him from the sofa. "You haven't slept," she said. "Neither have you," he replied without turning. She hesitated. "You could have left me behind." He faced her then, the hard mask gone, replaced by something almost vulnerable. "I tried, but I couldn't." Later, over a pot of tea neither of them touched, she asked, "Who was the man that killed your father?" Hajun leaned back, eyes distant. "His name is Rafael Varela. He was my father's business partner. When my father refused to traffic weapons for him, Varela turned his own men against us. I was 14. And your mother? She died that night too," he said quietly. "I built everything I have on the ashes he left." His voice was calm, but she saw the tremor beneath it. So this isn't just a war for power, she said. It's revenge. It was, he admitted. Until you. Acacia blinked. Me? He met her gaze. You made me remember what it felt like to want something that isn't built on blood. The words hung between them. Acacia wanted to look away, but the honesty in his eyes pinned her in place. She'd seen many sides of him, ruthless, protective, commanding, but never this raw. To change the subject, she asked, "What about my father's debts? How did his mess lead to all this?" Hajun's expression shifted. He stood, went to a small safe, and returned with a thin folder. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Your time, love, and support mean the world to us. Episode 2 is coming up shortly. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. See you in the next story.